ready to do this? Episode 2?
Let's go.
All right. Awesome. Welcome back, everybody. Episode number 2, Recliner Sports Report, Knockout Bets Podcast,
Let's go.
where we bring you our recaps of past fights and what we think is going to happen in upcoming fight cards. With me today, as always, we got Andrew. Andrew, how we doing, buddy?
Hey, we're doing good. I did pretty well last week on the picks and the bets. So riding good on into the second week of the podcast here.
Yeah, dude. All right, because I thought I had a pretty good weekend, but talk to us. How did we end up this weekend? Well, I think it was 9 out of 13, right?
I'm going to take credit for 9 out of 12 because I didn't make a pick on Mitchell and Barbosa. But it's really 9 out of 13 because I wanted to bet Barbosa, and I held myself back from actually making a bet. But he would have been my pick. So I guess I'll take 9 out of 13 on picks.
Dude, that's pretty good. I went 8 out of 13. Andrew gets the W this weekend. Hopefully I can change things for this weekend coming up. But talk to me, Andrew. What was your favorite pick that you had for the week?
So I've got 2. I'm going to cheat a little bit and give you 2 answers. The best hit this past weekend was Tim Elliott for sure for me. Just doubted Ulanbekov coming into that fight, and it was a very, very close fight. I consider myself a little bit lucky to have gotten that one on the scorecards, but I did have it scored for Tim Elliott myself. I do think he won the fight, so that one was a nice hit. And then to pat both of us on the back, because we both had the same pick, our first ever episode 1 knockout bet was Kevin Holland, who ended up coming through at I think it was about plus 140 or so with the TKO against Oliveira.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that was also my favorite hit of the night was that Holland bet. Super pumped. He needed it so bad. Like he needed to show us again why he is relevant today and why he is the next big thing. I thought, again, he had just an unlucky last year, but he's such a good fighter. He's such entertaining. I love him. I love Big Mouth. I love that I was right on it. If there's a fighter to be right on, you got to want to be right on Kevin Holland.
Guys that are fun to watch in general, and Kevin Holland definitely is that.
So amazing. So what was your letdown of this weekend?
Well, before we get there, I want to toot your horn a little bit too, because you had Ludovic Klein at it was like plus 155, plus 160, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, baby.
That was a solid underdog pick on your part there.
I knew, you know what, like I said, it was just the pressure, and I thought Devontae, and again, I thought it was definitely a split decision. I definitely thought it was close. I definitely wasn't like, oh, I think he definitely won this. But I do think that, like, it showed up in film. Devontae, you put pressure on him, he gets tired. Luckily, I'll take it, though. I'll take it as a win. But, yeah, mad props to Devontae Smith, too. That man, that was a good fight. It was an entertaining fight all around.
Back and forth fight. Yeah, for sure. Biggest disappointment, I'm stalling a little bit here because I'm jogging my memory. Definitely, I'm going to call myself out. I didn't do my homework well on Agapova. I also think she's just a difficult fighter to predict and to bet. Some of her fights, she comes out and looks like a world beater, and some not so much. And so that one was definitely a combination of just not getting the right read, and also a disappointment with the way Agapova fought. Also, Jamie Malarkey, we both had him as an underdog last week. Turner was super impressive. All props to him for what he did in that fight. Jamie Malarkey's a good fighter. I felt good backing him. And that just didn't come out the way we thought it would.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I definitely agree with you about Agapova. I think that was just we should have, like you said, that's us. Should have done better research on that. That's just not being professional, not doing our research.
Professional
And
gamble.
you pay the price. But yeah, my biggest one, I'm actually kind of torn, but I think let down. So I'm going to say this because it's let down. I think the let down definitely was Malarkey because he got knocked out, and like I just felt like he was fighting a good fight, and yeah, you got hit, and it ends like the way it does, and I just would have liked to see that at least go the distance or going the other way, but definitely big letdown. But I think my other one, it wasn't a letdown. I was actually really proud of him. But Renato Moicano, man, I was talking about it last week. I said I think I like this guy. I like his lankiness. I like his toughness. Um, RDA is a great fighter. There's no doubt about that. And it showed it was a great fight. But man, I think 5 more minutes. I think Dana White said it right. 5 more minutes, that could be a whole different fight. But I enjoyed
I
that
don't
one.
know about that. I think 5 more minutes, Morcano would have got his ass beat for 5 more minutes. But
I don't know. I don't know.
props
Could
to him
have
for
went.
hanging in there for all 5 rounds.
Yeah, every time that doctor came in, I was like, "Go away. He's fine. He's got this. He's got this."
Yeah. I did well with the bets this past week. I ended up, I think, up about 13 units, and part of it was just one of those gut feelings. I threw a pretty good sized bet on RDA like 3 minutes before the fight on the money line. That one came through, so I'm happy with myself. Sometimes you throw those bets 3 minutes before the fight starts, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. Hopefully you've done your homework ahead of time, and that one happened to work out for me.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, any other recognizable, highlightable moments? I know for me, Bryce Mitchell and Edson Barboza. I think, man, I love Bryce Mitchell. I liked him before, but I love the stuff that they do with fighters pre-show and during the show, the highlights, the snippets into their life. Man, it made me appreciate that kid even more. I love everything he's doing. I love that afterwards he wanted to, give half his purse. Which, Bryce, if you ever listen to this, I don't know what crazy world that you're listening to this right now, but dude, hit us up. We'd love to collab on some type of nonprofit, give back to whatever charity you want. Let us know. Don't know what, how, make it happen. But yeah, I think I definitely was impressed with that fight. I thought that was really well. What about you? Any other ones?
Absolutely. I completely agree with you on Bryce Mitchell. That was the proving it fight to me. He's had a hot streak coming up, beating not the greatest necessarily level of competition, and didn't get the finish, but doing to Barbosa what he did to Barbosa was incredibly impressive. It shows that he's definitely a guy to be reckoned with if there was any questions going into that fight. I mean, we got to talk about the main event while we're talking about the recap, and then we can get into the bets and picks for this week. But Colby and Masvidal. Colby was very impressive. Masvidal had his moment with the knockdown at one point in time and wasn't able to jump on it and finish it. But that to me, and I think to probably a lot of people, cemented Colby as the second best guy in the division. I mean, there's still Kamaru Usman out there, but it's going to be interesting matchmaking going forward for Colby. I don't think he's going to get a third fight with Kamaru anytime soon. There would have to be a lot of stuff to happen before we see a third fight. We've seen it twice. We've seen Kamaru beat him twice. Nobody really needs to see that fight necessarily anytime soon. But there's all kinds of rumors flying around about him fighting Dustin Poirier, which I think is an interesting fight. I'm assuming that fight probably happens at 170 with Poirier moving up. I'd watch that fight. I think that would be a really interesting fight. I'd have Colby in that fight if Dustin's moving up. But yeah, Colby had an impressive performance this weekend.
Yeah. Did not see, I did see it playing out that way, but I didn't think it would play out that way. I definitely saw, because that's what Colby, we know what Colby can do. I just thought I thought Masvidal was going to put out more. I did. I think he said it right. He was flat-footed. And like we always say, I'm not getting in the ring with those guys, but it kind of showed. And again, I wonder, like I said last week, I wonder how much the mind games played into that, or if that's just how it was going to end up, because we knew Colby was going to apply pressure and get it to the ground, and he didn't hide what he was doing. But to me, honestly, at that point, I would have just rather seen a Colby finish, man. Like at that point, not a snooze fest, but dang,
Colby talks a good game, but a lot of his fights play out exactly how that one did.
Yeah.
The Usman fights were a little bit more exciting, but a lot of Colby fights are Colby laying on top of somebody for 3 or more recently 5 rounds.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But I think the exciting thing now is, like you said, well, all right, that one's over, but who's next? Because I think you're right. I don't think Usman the next option, but I could see, Dustin Poirier. I could see that being a viable option.
I'd like to, just as a fight nerd, I'd like to see Colby fight Leon Edwards, but I don't know that Leon Edwards has the marketing power right now for them to make that fight.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what would happen with that one. But yeah, I definitely would like to see Dustin Poirier. And then honestly, for Masvidal, I have no idea what's next for that guy. Thank God he signed his contract.
He'll get fights. He'll have fun fights. He'll hopefully knock guys out and give us highlights again.
Yeah. Hopefully Street Jesus can get back in it. I'm not going to say I was let down by the fight, but I thought maybe, the hype, I think I maybe hyped it up too much. I think I set my expectations
more competitive.
Yeah, I think I set my expectations so high. Yeah, it is what it is. But like, that's the UFC, because there can be, no name fighters that you're watching a card and you're going through it and you're like, dang, that was fight of the night. I don't agree with
where everybody starts.
Yeah, I don't agree with that fight of the night call for those two to be the fight of the night.
I agree. There were better fights on the card.
That's not what this week's episode's about. All right. Hey, we'll be right back. That was our recap of the UFC 272 Colby versus Masvidal. When we come back, we're going to be breaking down this week's card: Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev. Right after this. All right, welcome back. Recliner Sports Report, Knockout Bets podcast. We got a great card this weekend. UFC Vegas 50, Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev. 14-fight UFC card at Apex, Las Vegas, Nevada. Gotta love it.
For a fight night card that's going to be free, this is a good card top to bottom. It might not be the most exciting main card that we've ever seen, But top to bottom, prelims all the way to the main card, there's some good, exciting fights on here.
Yeah, as they would say, they shouldn't. I can't believe it's free. I can't believe they're not paying for this, or we're not paying for it. Great. So we have a featherweight fight to start off the card. Andrew, what's your thoughts, buddy?
So the first fight of the night is Mirzakhanov and Nchukwi. Mirzakhanov is an interesting guy. This is his first fight in the UFC. He's 10-0. He's 35 years old, though, which is very much on the older side for a guy making his debut in the UFC, especially as an undefeated fighter. He's very light on his feet for light heavyweight for the 205-pound division. He kind of bounces around a lot in the cage, which you don't necessarily see a whole lot with the bigger fighters. Heavy hands. He has 7 knockouts in his last 10 fights. Likes to throw the liver shot as well as go to the head. Can wrestle a little bit. He's the last guy to beat Andre Muniz back in 2016. Don't know how much that means 6 years later, but it's an interesting tidbit. Nchukwi, he likes to push guys into the fence, fight in the clinch, knees and elbows, kind of dirty boxing, that kind of style is where he enjoys his fights being. But he's got a kickboxing background. He throws hard. He definitely does well in space with the punches and the kicks. He does sometimes loop his punches, which leaves him open to counters a little bit. And he doesn't have a ton of professional fights. He came into the UFC very early in his career. I think it was after his 3rd fight. His 4th fight was in the UFC. His 3rd fight, he knocked out William Knight, which is a pretty impressive win to get into the UFC. Stoppage might have been a little early in the William Knight fight, but good win nonetheless, and a win that's aged well with how William Knight's done in the UFC. This one is tough to pick for me. I'm going to lean towards Mirzakhanov. I don't know that I'll end up having a bet either way on this fight. I do think that both guys have a good chance for a finish in this fight. The odds also reflect that, though. Last I checked, fight to not go the distance is -180. Not especially excited about jumping on a -180 for fight not goes the distance in this fight. So I think I'm probably going to end up passing. But if I'm picking somebody just to win the fight without having a bet on it, I think Mirzakhanov's the guy. I think even being 35 years old, if he advances quickly, I think not that he's going to the top of the division necessarily, but that he can make his way upwards. And Nchukwi hasn't proven that yet. I think Mirzakhanov can mix in the takedowns. I think his movement is good. I think the way he mixes up his boxing is good. And that's going to be my pick, probably without a bet.
Mirzakhanov, yeah, I agree with you. I do think it's interesting, his late start. But I tell you what, everything that I watch on this guy is exciting. You look 8 finish out of his 10 fights, got 8 finishes, all by knockouts. I mean, and in his last fight, I tell you what,
Contender series.
That was I rewatched it so many times just to see where was the shot, what was did it even look like it was that big of a hit? You know what I'm saying? It didn't even look like that was his most powerful shot, and it threw him back. And I tell you what, and that was a tough person too, in Mateus Scheffel. So I think he's got knockout power. I think it's right. I think what I like about Nchukwi is, he's got good elbows in the clinch. I think that he needs to apply pressure. I think, like you said, I think he just needs to keep the pace on his side. I think his one loss though, he got hit with a low blow point deduction. I wouldn't necessarily say he lost that fight. I think it's just hard to come back when you get that, and I don't think he won that round either way. So that really flips a card around when you get a point deduction in a 3-round fight. But yeah, I mean, he's got win over William Knight. I mean, he's got a good track record so far. I think this is definitely a test, and I think his biggest thing, he just needs to be careful rushing in. I think he needs to take his shots right. I think he needs to get, apply the pressure and control the cage, but don't go in there crazy. You got to, because at any point, Merchkanov is going to be able to knock you out. And he's shown that time. Again, out of his 10 fights, 8, right? 8 of them, lights out. I have this as a potential as a KO. I will make a final decision at the end of this episode.
I think that's the best way to do it, is for us to talk it through and see where we think our spot is. Right? I didn't do it last week, and I didn't do it this week either to pick the KO bet before we hop on here and talk it through. I think the best thing is talking it through and seeing where we find that spot by the end.
But this one screams out knockout to me. Yeah, I think, overall it's going to be a great fight. I think, like you said, the line is right where it's at. To make a pick for me, I'm going to have to go with same thing, Merchkanov. I think we can do that. All right. Next one, we got a bantamweight at 135. And I tell you what, this is the return of Chris Montino. I tell you what, dang, I'm glad to see him back, and I'm glad to see he looks fine. He looks alive. He doesn't look like the last time I saw him, so good for him. Against a very tough competitor, Guido Canetti. So, talk to me. What's your first thoughts on this one?
My first thoughts on this one are that the UFC, being the promotion that it is, and again, we said it a couple times last week. I think we already brought it up once this week. Neither one of us is stepping in a cage to fight these guys, but this is not a UFC level fight on either side for me. This is a fight that should be happening in a maybe not necessarily regional, but like a lower tier of MMA. I don't think either of these guys at this point in their careers are UFC level fighters. I'd love for either one or both of them to prove me wrong. Guido Canetti's 42 years old. I don't think he has much time left to prove that wrong. But Moutinho, like you mentioned, he hung in there with Sean O'Malley. He took an absolute beating. The number of strikes he absorbed, I don't have offhand what the number it was. It was a very, very high number of punches to the face and strikes elsewhere. So, yeah, flippantly, we can say good to see Moutinho coming back, stepping in here. He did get through and land a couple shots on O'Malley, which for a guy taking that huge of a step up in competition on short notice,
I'm going to stop you
right there. Got to give him a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah, dude, just to go back for you, because right when you said, I don't know how many, I was actually curious.
Pop it up.
230 significant strikes landed.
Oh, just absolutely brutal.
That's so many.
Yes, it is. That is a lot of times to get hit really hard. Yeah. So, like we said, good to see him coming back. I almost think that this is the type of fight where the UFC is kind of rewarding Moutinho for stepping in like he did with Sean O'Malley, for being one part of the show that the two of them put on together, mostly, I guess, by not getting knocked out when he got hit 200 plus times. Um, he is a guy who has okay striking. He has better volume than he does power. He does throw pretty straight shots. He has decent technique in that way. Guido Canetti, like I mentioned, is 42 years old. He's got a Muay Thai style. His strength in his recent fights and through his career has been heavy leg kicks. He comes out hard with the leg kicks. He's 42 years old. A lot of 42-year-olds in the UFC and anywhere in MMA gas out when you get to the second and third round, and we've definitely seen him have that problem in the past in recent fights. He's also very hittable on the feet, which I think does not play well for him in this matchup with the decent boxing that Moutinho has. On my notes, I wrote very big and circled it, no dollars on this fight. Going into this one, I'm picking Moutinho to win it, and I'm not putting any of my hard-earned money anywhere near this fight on either guy.
Oh man, none of my hard-earned dollars.
Not on this fight.
You know what? I tell you what. Like you said, these guys should be very happy that they're on this card. They should be very happy for the opportunity they're getting. I agree with you. I think Montino's here because as a way to put on a show against a really tough opponent. You deserve it. So definitely, let's see what he can do this weekend. I got some interesting facts about Montino. All right, he fought a guy, all right, from Mount Vernon, Ohio, because you say UFC, Ohio, like UFC, like top-ranked contenders, right? These guys have only fought, very small amounts. Mount Vernon, Ohio, Jason Ryan, all right, brother to Justin Ryan, all that crew, Mount Vernon, Ohio, Thomas Van Winkle, Corey Buckingham, who's also a upcoming MMA fighter, guys that I went to college with at Heidelberg University. Corey Buckingham, all Ohio, glass and doors. Get your doors installed if you're in Ohio listening. So the fact that he beat Jason Ryan, I like him. I think he's a tough guy. So I'm going to have to refer Montino on this one. But like you said, there's really nothing else that's driving me to say, hey, this is definitely going to happen. Because I think, Guido's on a 3-fight lose streak. He's definitely strong with his punches. I think with him to win, he needs to control the center of the ring. But I think what Chris does is he doesn't stop moving forward. He makes you fight off the back foot. He is straight with his punches. He's got, I want to say, pretty solid takedown defense. I think this will be a great test, but we're gonna see what happens here. But yeah, I think I have a weird feeling of something I might throw in there. Sprinkling is the over on this one. I could potentially see this being a brawl for just 15 minutes. Seeing these guys just beat the crap out of each other.
Let's check that line because that's an interesting angle. I like that. I'm gonna pop that up and see if I can find it.
Yeah, that's if it's anything over 1.5, I think that's easy money. 2.5, I would be shocked if it wasn't anywhere near like minus 200, minus 180.
So over 2.5 right now. And I'm going to shout out, they're not a sponsor or anything, but they're just an excellent resource for anybody that likes to bet on fights, is bestfightodds.com. They'll show you from about 8 different books the odds. So depending which books you have, they can help you get the best fight odds on whatever you're looking to throw some money on for this Saturday. So over 2.5 rounds in this fight is sitting around minus 140, minus 150 on the books that have thrown it up so far. I don't think that's a bad bet. I actually like that angle on this fight. like I
I don't
said,
usually do it. I hate doing it because you never know. The UFC is so unpredictable, but
right.
I can see
And
it.
at negative odds too, it's not always my favorite bet, but I do think it's a good angle for this fight. I do think there's a good chance that this one goes the distance. I don't see Moutinho getting a finish. I can see my way to Kennedy finding a finish somewhere, but I think it's very unlikely. This feels a little bit like the UFC gave Moutinho the guy that he has the best chance to beat as kind of a reward for what he did against O'Malley. And uh, Moutinho, I think he does have a couple of knockouts in his career, but just doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to go out and knock out UFC-ish level guys, even if
Yeah.
Kennedy is 2-6 and 42 years old.
Well, I couldn't agree
2-6
more.
UFC, that is.
I couldn't agree more. That was the bantamweight fight versus Chris Montino and Guido Canetti. Next up, we have a middleweight contenders: Dalsha Langambula and Cody Brundage. Dalsha Langambula 11-3, Cody Brundage 6-2. Both some very great fighters. Andrew, start us off.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for this fight. This is one of the first ones of a few that are not even the featured co-main or main event that I'm pretty excited about for this weekend. Cody Brundage is a wrestler primarily. He did get blanketed by Nick Maximov, but we saw recently what Nick Maximov did to Punahele Soriano that was incredibly impressive. It seems like
Dude,
Nick Maximov is becoming a force to be reckoned with.
those Nate Diaz Academy boys, man. They train them well. Train them
Yeah.
well. I love
Oh,
it.
I was really impressed with Maximov against Soriano. You knew that was going to be the game plan. That's going to be his game plan in just about every fight to have the fight go that way. And the way that he was able to impose his will was more than I expected. I had a bet on Soriano in that fight, thinking that he was going to be able to stay on his feet and off the back of the cage a little bit more than he was able to. But anyway, Cody Brundage, primarily a wrestler, was, speaking of William Knight, fought William Knight on the Contender Series, was doing very well in the fight, pretty much dominating the fight in the beginning, and unfortunately got KO'd by elbows while going for a takedown, which is the downfall of fair amount of wrestlers sometimes in MMA. If you get stuck grabbing onto those legs and you got somebody with some big heavy elbows or some big heavy strikes, you can get caught there. And that's what happened to Brundage against William Knight. Brundage has sneaky good leg kicks for a wrestler, which is a good, strong part of his game. He does carry his hands low at times and can get hit. Dalcha, champion. Guy to me just looks like he should be in an action movie. Like, huge shoulders. A lot of fighters are ripped, but he's like even more ripped than most UFC fighters. He's either patient and looks for his shots or sometimes tries to conserve a little bit because he has had problems gassing out in previous fights. So there are times where he takes like a whole minute off in a fight and he just waits for something to happen, whether he's looking for a counter, whether he's resting his gas tank, whatever it is. He takes minutes off in fights. And I mean, we've seen crazy judging, but if you're taking minutes off in fights, you're heading towards losing rounds if you're not landing that knockdown or knockout shot. Like I mentioned, he has had gas tank issues in the past, so that's something to look for against Cody Brundage. Especially, he's a pressure wrestler. And I think that Cody has what it takes to wear on Dalcha against the cage, take him down, eliminate Dalcha's shot for a one-punch knockout, which I think is his best path to winning this fight. If this goes to decision, I think it's very likely in my view that Brundage wins the decision. I think Dalcha's shot here is to knock him out. And I believe the last time I looked that Cody is a small underdog in this spot, and I'm popping that back up here.
Yeah. Last one I got as was plus 105 for Brundage.
I don't know where it went on. Looking on best fight odds, and I'm not seeing it right now. But yeah, Brundage should be a small underdog, and I like that line quite a bit. I don't think I'm going to parlay him. My confidence is not that high, but I think I'll have a bet around 1 unit or so straight on Cody Brundage in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way on it, but I agree the line is right where it's at, and I agree Dalcha needs to knock him out to win. I just think he can do it. But I think looking back at Dalcha's film, you're exactly right. The real question is how long is Dalcha going to be able to go for? And he's going to have to go against a really, really tough fighter where, like you said, if he's going to apply pressure and get him on the ground, that already cuts the round time down quite significantly, and you can't be waiting around to pick your shots at that moment because you're already back. Your back's against the clock at that point. So I do like Dalcha's knockout power. Again, could be another potential knockout for the night. I do think that he is a tough, big, explosive fighter. I do like Cody's athleticism. Again, I think a note here, it's not a lot, but I'm seeing like a 4-inch reach advantage for Dalcha. It's not significant, but that's bigger number for most. I do like that. But yeah, I think this line is right on. I agree. I think Cody's a slight underdog. I'm going to go, I think my gut's leaning towards Dalcha with a KO, but I agree if he doesn't, if it's going to the scorecard, I could see Cody doing the work. I mean, again, I could also see Cody knocking him out here. I mean, I think you're right. I think he's got some sneaky good kicks. I think he's really athletic. I think he's shown all of that stuff on film. So I wouldn't be surprised if it also went his way. Again, we're talking about some big boys here. You know, this is a middleweight class. These are some beasts. As Brandon Shaw would say, these are some thick boys. All right, yeah. These are some thick boys.
Dalcha has fought at light heavyweight too. I mean, Dalcha's fought up even a higher weight class than where this fight's going to be at. He's especially a big guy.
Yeah,
it actually plays to his detriment at times. I think that partly is what drains on his gas tank.
Yeah, I think keys for Brundage here is he's got to get him to the mat. And keys for Dalcha is he can't wait around. He's got to start off fast, and he's got to put him out early. Because the later this fight goes, I think the Brundage has the advantage. Awesome. Well, that wraps us up for the middleweight, Dalcha versus Brundage. Next up, we got the women's flyweight versus. I'm excited for this fight.
This is a fun one.
Sabina Mazo, 9-3 versus Miranda Maverick, 11-4. Andrew, what are we thinking?
Yeah, so these are both good, solid fighters who are both coming in on 2-fight losing streaks. Miranda's coming in a little bit on short notice here. She came in about 2.5 weeks notice for the fight. So that's definitely not a full training camp, but it has been out there that she was training, staying ready, waiting for an opportunity to hop in and take a fight. So I'm not at all worried that she's coming off the couch and hopping into the ring on this one. I think she's going to be ready to go for the fight. Her background is wrestling. I mentioned that she's on a 2-fight win streak. However, I think she got absolutely robbed against Macy Barber in that decision. I'll take it because
That was a weird one. That was
yeah,
a weird one.
I had a bet on Macy Barber in that fight. So I'll take the win. But on my scorecard, I definitely had Maverick winning that fight. After that, she was absolutely dominated by Erin Blanchfield, just out-grappled, out-wrestled the entire fight. Made to maybe not necessarily look like the super hot prospect that a lot of people thought that she was. She's got good kicks to the body. She's good on the mat.
Which was surprising against Blanchfield.
Yeah.
That was the thing. That was, because I'm sitting here thinking the whole time, like, what's the advantage here? Well, it's like, oh, it's her ground and pound, and it's her getting to the mat. And then that's what she got beat on by Blanchfield.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's throwing my mind all over the place with this. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree. Because, yeah, we've seen Miranda be good on the mat. She's thick, in a way of being strong, muscular. She definitely, if you see her just standing next to a lot of other women's fighters, she just looks stronger throughout her whole body. And that shows through in a lot of her fights. Mazo is a BJJ brown belt, so she knows what she's doing on the ground. She's a little flat-footed in her striking. Her striking is not exactly super precise, and she's a little slow with her striking. She's got really long arms, and it's almost like when she throws a punch out, she almost keeps it out there for like a beat longer than most boxers or kickboxers or mixed martial artists do. And when you have your hand out there, your hand's not protecting your face, and here comes somebody else's fist to your face. So that's definitely something to look for in this fight is Mazo being open to getting hit. One thing that Mazo hasn't shown a ton in the UFC, but has on her regional fights and her earlier fights in her career, she likes to throw the head kick. She likes to work to set that up, and she has, I think, 2 or 3 knockouts by head kick earlier on in her career. So that's definitely a weapon in her arsenal that we can be on the lookout for. I have Miranda Maverick in this fight. I think that her strength, just overall muscle mass is going to be better. I think it's fairly even on the feet. Miranda doesn't have the greatest striking in the world, but neither does Mazo. And I think Miranda has a pretty big advantage on the ground. The line on this fight is very wide, especially seeing what we saw happen to Miranda Maverick in her last fight. Granted, Erin Blanchfield is a really, really good fighter, and on her way up the rankings in the division, but I'm a little hesitant to lay. What are the odds here? I'm pulling up best fight odds again here to look at.
My first looks. These are just from
between
ESPN.
minus 300 and minus 350. So the odds are
I got that
a little
too.
different according to the book, but around 3 to 1, 3.5 to 1. I'm just not sure that I feel good with those odds. I'm definitely not betting Mazo, even at around plus 250 or so. I do not think she has that great of a chance to win this fight. I'd probably have to get to like plus 400, plus 500 before I would think about taking a stab on Mazo, and I don't think we're going to see it go that high. But 3 to 1 on Maverick at this point, I may sprinkle it in one or two parlays because I like to put a lot of parlays together, but it's not going to be in a lot of them if it even ends up being in any.
Um, yeah, I'm leaning so hard the other way on this, and it's mostly because I just watching the film on Sabina Mazo. I like what she can do technically, um, but I do see I do, if Miranda Maverick comes out and goes with takedowns and grounds and pounds and works submissions and just bullies her. Um, I think, yeah, I think that's very realistic and it could happen. I just got this weird feeling that Sabina Mazo is gonna knock her out. And I just feel like I like her striking. I like how technical she is. I think she definitely needs to keep herself at range. I think she needs to keep herself off the fence. I think the biggest thing about her loss to Agapova was she couldn't get out of Agapova's fists away. Like Agapova was just landing everything, and like I know it says she got submitted, but it was really a knockout. It was a knockout, and it
Jumped
just.
on the neck.
But when she controlled the center of the ring, and when she made Agapova move backwards, I liked what Mazo was doing, striking wise. I think Agapova is she's another good fighter. But I think for this division, I like Sabina Mazo. I think she has more of a chance than you're giving her. No, I'm just kidding. But I think you're
Good
right.
when we disagree.
Yeah, I think you're right though that on paper, and again, I'm not a UFC trainer and I'm not over on the gyms helping with the game plan. But if I was Miranda's coach, I'd be saying, look, you're going to go bully her. You're going to apply pressure. You're going to get her against the cage and you're going to take her down. And that's how you're going to win the fight. And if you don't believe me, go watch Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, because we can see what happens when you apply pressure and win fights. That's how many times we watched that in the UFC. It's a good play if you use that. But I'm hoping Sabina. I'm taking it as just a straight up underdog by itself, just for something. I think this could be. I think there's a couple plus 200s that I'm actually liking on this whole card. I don't know. Maybe I'll be crazy and just parlay all three of them just because. But yeah. Again, no particular reason. Just I like the plus 240 odds, and I like Sabina's style a little bit more than Miranda's. I like the technicals, the side of it more than the. I like the Muay Thai aspect more than the bully fighter. So I'm hoping for some really cool knockout.
Yeah. Well, I would love to see it, and I don't think there are certainly no books that I have, and I don't know of any actually that put this out there, but what the odds would be on a head kick knockout.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get huge plus odds on betting on a head kick knockout. And of course, the bookies aren't dumb. They know she's done it a couple of times before, so it might not be as high of a number as it would be for, somebody who's never done it before. But I think that would be a fun thing to put a tiny little, throw a few bucks on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
By head kick knockout. But yeah, I think in addition to getting her against the cage, I think if she can time the shots, I was talking about in my first spiel here with the way Mazo kind of leaves her strikes out there for like a beat, which is kind of funky to me. If she can time that, get in on the hips on a double leg, that's another way I can see her getting it to the ground, which I agree with you is where Maverick wants this fight.
Oh yeah. Either way, definitely down to be a good fight for this weekend. That was the women's flyweight, Sabina Mazo versus Miranda Maverick. Drop down in the comments who you think you're going to win on any of our fights. Are we wrong? Are we right? Who knows? Just comment. Give us a like. Hit subscribe. We'll interact with you. This is social media.
How right or how wrong we are.
This is social media, people. Let's just be social here. All right. Next up, moving our way through the prelims, we have a featherweight bout versus Damon Jackson, 19-4, versus Kamala Kirk, 12-4. And before you start, Andrew, to give us your rundown, I just want to note of Damon Jackson's 19 wins, 14 by submission.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. That is a hefty number, but Kamala Kirk is no light competitor either. So give me it. What are your thoughts?
I am pumped for this fight. That's my first thought. As not pumped as I am for Canetta and Moutinho, I'm equally as pumped for this fight. This is going to be, I think, a back and forth banger brawl. Not a banger where they're throwing fists a lot. I think a lot of this is going to play out on the ground, especially if it's going in Damon Jackson's favor. That's where he wants the fight to be. He's got a wrestling background. It's his second stint in the UFC. He came in on his second stint in the UFC and on 3 days' notice took out Mirsad Bektic impressively. He's been on a good little run. He's absolutely a submission artist. They call him the Leech. It's an appropriate nickname for what he does in the cage. He scrambles incredibly well. He's got decent kicks, a very strong gas tank, and is absolutely relentless. Damon Jackson leaves a little bit to be desired in the striking, but the rest of his game is very, very strong. Kamuela Kirk, Kamuela Kirk has very clean striking, solid, but not like all-star off the charts takedown defense. He got a little lucky, I think, in the decision against Makwan Amirkhani in his first fight in the UFC. He definitely did himself well to fight a guy that tough and to do as well as he did in that fight, in his first fight coming into the UFC. It was definitely an impressive performance to be able to hang in there, but I did think that Makwan got robbed a little bit in that fight.
Agreed. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Kirk's got some jiu-jitsu, so he's not completely lost on the ground. He is able to scramble and get back to his feet if he does get taken down. But the Leech, when he gets you on the ground, he is very good at holding you on the ground, at hunting for submissions, and at finding those submissions. I am going with Damon Jackson in this fight. The line has had some interesting movement. It's moved a lot towards Kirk, which I don't really understand.
I'll say I got Damon Jackson earlier on in the week. Monday at plus 105.
Did you? Okay.
And I'm super pumped.
Yeah. The line looks like opened at Damon Jackson minus 145. And now it's at about a pick 'em across most books on best fight odds.
Yep.
I do think that the original line that it opened at with Damon Jackson about minus 145, that the bookies got that one right, that's the appropriate line. This is a close fight, but that Damon Jackson should be the favorite, that this is not a pick 'em. To go down from minus 145 to about minus 110 in most places feels like too much love for a guy in Kamuela Kirk who, like I said, did well against Amirkhani, thought he lost the fight, did well on the regional scene, not necessarily against the greatest of all time competition. And I'm just not sold that he is a guy that should be at a pick 'em price tag against Damon Jackson, who in his second run here in the UFC has really shown some stuff.
Yeah. I think Damon Jackson's Damon Jackson's going to put this one away. I mean, 17 of 19 of his wins were all finishes. This guy is a force to be reckoned with in the ring. I think we're going to see exactly what we see in these cases, which are when fighters have this much abilities with submissions and grappling, that they're just going to end up taking them to the ground and finishing them with a submission. You know what I'm saying? If it's not broke, don't fix it. I also was impressed with his last dominant win over Charles Rosa, which Peabody, Mass. That's a pretty big statement right there, because Charles Rosa is a good fighter as well. I think for Kirk to have a chance here, it's going to come down to, can he defend the takedowns? Can he keep on his feet? Can he use his 4-inch reach advantage? I mean, you look back at his stats. 11 of his.
Kirk has a slight advantage on the feet in this fight if he's able to keep it there, but I don't see him being able to keep it there.
Yeah, but you look at Kirk too. 11 of his 12 wins are finishes. So these guys are both some good finishers. I don't think I'm confident enough to bet like an under here, because I could see this as just being a hard-nosed fight and then getting submitted like 10 seconds after the overhit or the under goes by. But I do see this as Damon Jackson winning, and I like taking him. Like I said, I got him at a slight underdog favorite, so I'm actually pretty pumped. I agree. I think there's been some there's some crazy line action movement going on with these guys. But I'm liking Damon Jackson here.
We're on the same side for this one, and I agree with you. The performance he put in against Rosa was very impressive, and Rosa's a grappler first, so to do what he did to Rosa was impressive.
Oh yeah, awesome. All right, that was our featherweight fight: Damon Jackson versus Kamuela Kirk. Again, who you think is going to win? Drop your opinions in the comments. Give us a follow on Twitter at recliner_report. Let us know there. Hit that like and subscribe. Next up, moving our way up the card, we have bantamweight Trevin Jones, 13-7 versus Javid Bashkarat, 11-0. Mind you, all finishes. Yes. I'm excited for this fight.
Notes too.
I'm excited for this fight. Talk to me. What are you feeling?
Yeah. Oh, this is another exciting one. I'm with you. This is a great fight. Bashkarat is 11-0, making his UFC debut. So that's the caveat to it, is that not all of those 11 wins came against necessarily the highest level of competition. He was very impressive in his Dana White contender fight, but I'm not sure that his opponent was super high level there. His opponent was an undefeated guy who had beaten a lot of guys that would be considered cans on his record. Nonetheless, the combination striking.
Mind you, if any of you watching this, Andrew called you the can.
I will run and hide if any of those 4 and 11 fighters come to find me. I will. I'm not even joking. I will. I will run and hide.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So anyway, Bashkarat coming in, impressive performance on the Contender Series, mixing the striking and grappling well, mixes in body shots well, mixes his whole attack well. He seems very well-rounded guy. That I think that if the UFC brings him along in a good way, is a guy that can develop into somebody who can make some noise in the division. Starting him with Trevin Jones in fight number 1, I'm not sure is necessarily doing that. Trevin Jones has power, man, and we've seen that power. We've seen him put people to sleep with his fists. He came back from the dead against Timur Valiev, who is one of the most exciting guys in my estimation to come into the UFC recently. Valiev had him just about put away in the first round, hung on, survived, comes back and KOs him with one shot in the second round. Trevin Jones has heavy kicks. Like I mentioned, it's all about the power in the hands for him, though. He does get hit. Basharat is definitely more evasive on the feet. This is definitely striking wise. Basharat has the speed advantage. I think he will on the feet in this fight, and Trevin Jones absolutely has the power advantage, hits harder. Trevin Jones likes to clinch, doesn't have excellent takedowns necessarily, but he doesn't have terrible wrestling either. Trevin Jones is a decently well-rounded fighter as well. This one is really, really tough for me to pick. I want to lean towards picking Basharat, but I don't think that I'm going to get to the point of actually putting the bet in. This is a similar spot to me where I got lucky last week. I wanted to bet Barbosa and just couldn't get myself to do it because I saw well, in that fight, it was one way to lose, but I could see a very clear way that fight would go and Barbosa would lose, which is what happened. In this fight, I can see Trevin Jones winning pretty much any which way. I can also see Basharat winning pretty much any which way. I think this, from a betting standpoint for me, is just going to be a pass. It depends a little bit on how the line goes through the week. Right now, Basharat on best fight odds is hovering between minus 140 to minus 160 favorite. Trevin Jones, the best line you're going to get on him is around plus 130. Neither one of those lines feels good to me. This is probably going to be a pass betting wise. If the line does happen to move more towards Basharat and I can get Trevin Jones more towards a plus 150, plus 160, then I'm definitely more interested at that point. But where the line is right now, I think the bookies initially and the public who's moved the lines a little bit so far this week have done a good job, and it's right about where it should be. I don't see a whole ton of value on either side.
Yeah, I would say I say you're pretty spot on with that. Trevin Jones, he's shown he's had knockout power. He had a really impressive knockout against Mario Batista. But I'll tell you what, his last fight against Kakramanov, getting submitted like that again, I think he fought well, but I think he showed a couple weaknesses, and one is that gas tank. And I think here for me, Javid, if he can apply pressure and keep this fight moving and control the cage, I mean, you're looking at both the guys. They're pretty similar statistically wise, but if you see one little statistic there, if you're looking at that, you got takedown advantage just by 2.08, just an advantage. Now, the UFC, and when you're talking about lines that are super, super tight like this, you got to look at sometimes what are the bookies looking at too, and you think like, why is it the way it is? I don't think this is the main reason, but I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, that's just a small, very takedown average per fight. But then you look at the accuracy, and it goes from 15% for Trevin Jones and 60% for Javid. So
part of that competition that he's fought against so far in his career, I think.
But. Exactly, and that's why I think it's hard to tell with that stat. But it's something to definitely, again, it's like just the same as 11 finishes. It's something to take note of here. I think what he does need to do is he needs to use his striking. I think Baccarat needs to apply pressure, lots of volume to me. I think put the pressure on Trevin Jones, make him get tired. run him down and try to get the possible knockout. But yeah, welcome to the UFC, buddy. Trevin Jones.
Yeah,
That's there's no more cans here, as
that's not an easy fight.
as
Yeah,
we would say.
yeah.
But
I really want to see. I want to see Javid come in and be impressive because I think he can be a guy that's really fun to watch in the UFC. An interesting thing that I noticed with Javid, and he and I have this in common, is that he has a very big head for his body. Um, and I don't know what that means when you get into UFC career. A very big head, though, theoretically is more hittable by somebody who has the one hit quit power like Trevin Jones does. So I don't think that's an angle to look at in the fight. Just something interesting about the guy if you don't know a whole lot about him yet.
yeah, right on. I agree with you though. I think the line's right where it's at. I'm going Javid, and I'm throwing this when we get to the end. I'm throwing this as one of the ones I might have to pick too. Could be possible knockout. Awesome. Again, hit that like and subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on this fight. That was Trevin Jones versus Javid Bashkarat. I think it's going to be an absolute brawl, whichever way it goes. Speaking of brawls, man, we have an exciting women's flyweight in JJ Aldrich, 10-4, versus Jillian Robertson, 10-6. Man, I tell you what, I'm excited every time I get to watch Jillian Robertson or JJ Aldrich fight. I'm excited. I can't believe I get to watch them fighting each other. This is going to be an epic battle. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, I'm excited for this too. Epic battle, I'm not so sure. I see this as a bit of one-way traffic. Jillian, we know, is a grappler extraordinaire. And we know JJ's more of a striker. I see Jillian getting her to the mat and having her way, whether it ends up being a finish of some sort inside the distance or whether it's just a grinded out decision. I've got Jillian in this fight, and I've got her pretty confidently. I would say this is one of my more confident bets on this card. I'm actually very surprised that this line is as close as it is. Sitting out there right now on best fight odds, we've got Jillian Robertson around minus 130, minus 140. If I had a book and I was making the line for this fight, I'd have Jillian Robertson around minus 200 or even higher. I think this is a very, very, very good betting spot. Jillian Robertson, actually very similar to Miranda Maverick, is coming in on not super short notice, but a little bit of short notice. She's coming in about 2.5 weeks out of the fight. Jillian Robertson is still only 26 years old. It seems like she's been around in the UFC forever, but she's only 26 years old, and theoretically, and I believe that she is still improving her game, becoming a better fighter between fights in her training camps, and being a better version of herself each time she steps into the cage. At 26 years old, anybody who's going to be climbing the ranks obviously still needs to be doing that, and I think she is. Mentioned high level grappling. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that she holds the record for most submissions in all of women's MMA through all the divisions. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about that. Her striking is getting better. It's definitely not her strong suit, but we have seen improvement over the last few fights. She advances position incredibly well on the ground, just incredible high-level grappling and wrestling, getting to better positions, getting to positions where she can submit and work her submissions, flows well on the ground, just really impressive wrestler, grappler. JJ Aldrich is going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage in this fight, which for women's MMA in this weight class is pretty significant reach advantage. She's a striker. She throws good straight punches, throws pretty hard, picks good spots with her kicks. She doesn't kick a lot, but when she does, they tend to land and be effective. Her left hand is her power hand. She's got pretty good footwork. Her takedown defense is okay. It's not excellent. It's not terrible. Jillian Robertson is an incredible grappler, and as I've said, I'm gonna go right after we wrap recording this and put a pretty heavy bet on Jillian Robertson, and I'll probably have Jillian Robertson in some of my fun parlays that I throw together, and I'm also gonna look at the Jillian Robertson by finish, Jillian Robertson by submission props as well for, yeah.
Yeah, I have it written in my
Little tiny.
notes. I have it written in my notes. The Savage by sub. I think it is. I think it's her all the way. I think you're exactly right. That's who I'm leaning with. But I do think that if JJ can figure out how to keep this on the feet, that Jillian is going to find herself in a little bit of trouble, and she's going to have to actually work for this. I haven't seen anything that screams that, hey, JJ's got some of the best takedown defense in the division. I don't see anything that's showing that. I hope she figured it out. You know what I'm saying? I hope she can figure it out, because if not, it's going to be a long night on the mat for her. But if she can keep it on her feet, again, she's a 3rd degree black belt in karate. You know what I'm saying? She can throw some punches and throw some
Got
kicks,
strikes,
and she's quick, and she's tough, man. She's super tough. But man, I just love Jillian Robertson. Every time I watch her fight, she's lots of energy, she's crazy. She is the Savage. She submitted a great submission win over Priscilla Cachoeira, who is, as we just saw, a tough fighter. And to go and submit someone like her, that's pretty dominant. So yeah, I think keys to victory for Jillian here, to make sure I feel comfortable with my bet, because I agree with you. Definitely going to be putting some heavy money on Jillian Robertson. So if she loses, everyone please check in on your boy on Sunday. But what I would like to see as someone who's going to be putting money on her is, I want her to take her down quick, and I want her to end this inside the first round. That's what I would like to see. But I do have the Savage by sub. I got that written down there. Who do you guys think? Again, throw it down there in the comments. Let us know. Are we crazy here? The Savage by sub? I don't think so. And it's weird, because I swear, me and Andrew do not discuss our picks before. But the fact that we both thought that
first conversations are on here, and I love it that we agree on this one and agree that it's a hammer bet spot. And I would also love it if somebody in the comments tells us why we're totally wrong, but I love it for my bet that you see it the same way.
Oh, 100%. All right. That was our Jillian Robertson, our flyweight bout, Jillian Robertson versus JJ Aldrich. Next up, we have the final fight on the prelims, working our way through the card here. It is a welterweight banger. Matthew Semmelsberger versus AJ Fletcher. 9-0 or 9-3 versus 9-0 there. Very wide line. I just want to start off by saying that I'm seeing AJ at plus 200 odds, and that's what I had him on. And this is one of those ones where I was saying earlier, there's a couple people with some plus 200 odds that I like. That has recently changed, but not before I got one in on McKinney. Got him at plus 200 odds too. So when we get to that one,
oh wow,
yeah, right. I know it's definitely changed now. I'm seeing like plus 150 to like
I missed
lower.
that one.
But talk me through what are your initial thoughts with this one?
Yeah, when you started to do the intro into this fight, I started bouncing in my chair because that's how excited I am to talk about this fight, to watch this fight. Um, this man, there's a reason that Fletcher in his first fight in the UFC coming in is
the ghost.
Yes, the
The
ghost.
ghost.
Apparently, I think one of the commentators on, it was either his Contender Series fight or one of his regional fights, was saying they call him the ghost because he doesn't tan very well.
All right.
Um,
Not as intimidating as I want. I want those the ghost
for whatever that's
he
worth.
puts people to sleep. But I guess okay, that's
Yeah. But there's a reason that he is closing the prelim card here. There's a reason. First fight in the UFC. We see another undefeated fighter, Mirzakhanov, 10-0, coming in, leading off the prelim card. That's a fight that if people don't remember when the fights start, or if they just have other things going on in the day, they might miss that fight. UFC is trying to not have anybody miss this fight. This fight is going to be electric, potentially, on both sides. Fletcher is really short for 170 pounds. I think he's only about 5'8" or something like that, but he's thick, stocky, built like a wrestler. Very successful when he does go to his wrestling. He has 8 finishes in 9 fights, all wins, solid leg kicks, wrestles well, good timing on his strikes, and he had a brutal flying knee KO in one of his fights that I watched on tape. I didn't write down, I should have, where that was and who that was against, but one of the most brutal knockouts that you'll see anywhere. The thing to me that sells me on Fletcher as a guy who's going to have a really strong future in the UFC, watching his tape, it just looks like he sees the fight slower than his opponents. And granted, he's just coming in. This is his first fight in the UFC, so his opponents have been not UFC guys. He just looks like the comparison that I come up with is LeBron James. When you see LeBron James on a basketball court, he sometimes sees things that other people don't see because he sees the game slower than everybody else sees it. Or like a really good quarterback that just sees the game slower than it's playing out. Fletcher on tape seems to have that quality where he sees punches coming, he anticipates takedowns. I'm saying over and over the same thing. He sees what's coming at him and he reacts to it quickly. Semmelsberger coming in from Frederick, Maryland. Shout out Frederick, Maryland. That was my stomping grounds for 1 year of my life a few years back. Had a really great time there, and absolutely love the city of Frederick, Maryland. So shout out. Semmelsberger is going to have a big length advantage in this fight. Say length advantage and not size advantage, and I'll get to that in a minute. He's 6'1". Fletcher's 5'8". That's a pretty big height advantage. Semmelsberger is going to have an 8-inch reach advantage in this fight. 8 inches is an absolutely huge reach advantage. Semmelsberger also knocks people. I stopped because I was going to say the F word. He knocks people the F out. He's got, I believe, 3 in his career knockouts under 20 seconds into the fight, which that's pretty cool. And I believe 2 of those are in the UFC. At a 15-second knockout in his last fight, yeah, and he had the 16-second knockout against Witt. So Semmelsberger, he throws accurately, he throws hard, he's got bricks for hands. He has fast hands, he counters well, throws hard shots, moves well on the feet. I didn't find a lot when I went back and looked of tape of his grappling, and that's something I think Fletcher can probably exploit, and I think that's probably Fletcher's path to victory in this fight. watching back some of Fletcher's older fights, his double leg takedown is very strong. Semmelsberger is tall and lanky, and I think leaves himself open to Fletcher getting on the hips, getting that double leg, and taking him to the mat. I haven't put a pick in, or I haven't put a bet in, I mean, for this fight. I don't know that I even have a pick yet. I think the value definitely, and it looks like, I know you got plus 200. It looks like that's come down slightly. Fletcher, well, there are still a couple of plus 200s out there, some 185, some 195s.
I'm seeing
On AJ
190.
Fletcher.
I'm seeing 190 now.
Yeah, so it's come down a tiny bit, but not a huge move. I do think that value is on Fletcher. At that line, I will probably have a small bet on Fletcher. I think this is closer to a pick'em fight. I think this not, I mean, it's a UFC fight. Anything can happen, but the most likely outcome is Semmelsberger starches him and knocks him out, or Fletcher gets him on the ground and has his way with him and either finishes him or grinds him out to a decision win for Fletcher. The other possibility, and Semmelsberger would have to show that he can do this, the 8-inch reach advantage. If Semmelsberger's able to keep him at range and pick him apart and not let him get in on the takedowns, that's another possible way that Semmelsberger could piece his way to a decision on points. So I'm torn on picking a winner, but I do think the line should be much closer to a pick'em fight here, and so the value is on Fletcher, and I'll probably have a small bet on Fletcher.
Yeah, I think the only reason this line is the way it is because Fletcher's coming off. This is his UFC debut. That's really the only thing reason I think so. But the guy's on a 9-fight win streak. 8 of them have been finishes, 4 knockouts and 4 submissions. Talk about being well-rounded.
Fighter,
right?
Yeah.
Like this guy, I love everything about this guy. He is tough. He is athletic. His flying knee KO against Leonardo Diamante on that Dana White Contender Series.
That's on the Contender Series. That's right.
That was a highlight reel knockout. Love that. That's why we love watching the sport, for stuff like that. But I do think
the Contender Series is so great, is because guys go into those fights knowing that if they get a dramatic finish, they're more likely to get a contract, and so guys go a little bit more balls to the wall trying to get finishes.
Dana's very clear. You got to earn your contracts. So I like that for that aspect too as well. You don't see him just throw caution to the wind, but you see him be a little bit more aggressive. But I do think he's facing a tough test in Matthew Semmelsberger. I mean, this guy, he has, like you said, his knockouts quick, and he is accurate, and he punches hard and fast. I mean, he's got, of his few losses, we're talking like Chaos Williams is one, and that's another great fighter there. But I think this fight overall has fight of the night potential. I don't think this is a Semmelsberger's got to get him out early or he's going to drag it. I think it could very easily happen. Semmelsberger knocks him out early, but I think Semmelsberger's tough. I think for AJ to find his key to victory here is he needs to use his weight, use his size, bully him on the cage, take his shots, get him to the ground. Like you said, he's shorter in stature. Use that to take his shots when he can, and get it underneath him, level change, take him to the ground and pound, and keep him down there. But again, he's also athletic. Like I don't see this as something where like oh, if this is on the feet, this is over for Semmelsberger. So I think, or this is over for Fletcher. I think that both these guys are great on the feet. I do think there's a slight advantage for Fletcher on the ground game. I am definitely 100% riding on Fletcher, putting my money on there. Plus 200 odds. Definitely, probably will place a good amount on that one. Again, I think there's a couple big underdogs, but this is the one where I'm definitely going to put my most attention towards. I feel really, really confident about this one.
I'm super happy we're on the same side on this one too, because yeah, just a well-rounded guy, Fletcher. Like you said, on the feet, Semmelsberger's shown he's really, really good, and Fletcher can hang on the feet. He definitely will be at a disadvantage, and especially with the huge reach disadvantage, he'll have to get inside to be able to land shots, but he's shown that he's capable of doing that against bigger guys.
Yeah. 100%. All right, man. Well, that wraps up our prelim card. On to the next, but before that, just a quick shout out to our sponsor, Can Shoot Productions, for all your video needs. Thank you so much. That's Cam Wallace over in Fort Myers, Florida, 239. Whether you need a commercial for your business, small or large. He's also done real estate viewings. He's done powerlifting documentaries. Recently just did a swimming documentary too. This kid is great. He is got some amazing videos. Check him out. Can Shoot Productions. My brother. So, family, one love. But he's got some special things. Definitely inspiring me to do our journey on what we're on with this podcast and what we're doing. So shout out to Can Shoot. Go ahead, give him a like, give him a follow. If you're in the Fort Myers area or anywhere in the Florida area or wherever, and you want to have someone edit your videos, send them or give them a message on Facebook. All right, we'll be back right after this, and we'll give you a rundown on our thoughts on the main card for UFC Vegas 50, Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev. Coming right back right after this. Report. Go follow us on Twitter at @recliner_report. We're also on TikTok now too. Insta, Facebook, we're all over them. Spread the word. Like and share. Hit that subscribe. We super appreciate it. All right, dude. Next up, let's jump right into this. We have our main card, UFC Vegas 50. Thiago Santos, Magomed Ankalaev. The first fight on this stacked main event. We have middleweight Alex Pereira, 4-1, versus Bruno Silva, 22-6. Should be a great fight. Andrew, what's your first thoughts?
Yeah, so Alex Pereira is former Glory Kickboxing middleweight and light heavyweight champion. We can also say, you hear everybody say it who talks about Alex Pereira this week. He knocked out Israel Adesanya, and he also beat him by decision. So he's beaten Israel Adesanya in kickboxing twice. That's what he's probably most well known for. But if he continues in the UFC like he's been going, he's going to be known for much more than that. Like you said, he's 4-1 in MMA. not a whole ton of experience. A few of his fights even were back like 6-7 years ago. Took some time off from MMA, came back, had a brutal knockout in LFA, had a very solid knockout of Michaelitis in his last fight, in his first fight in the UFC. He's maybe the best kickboxer in the world. And so it almost seems silly to do the breakdown and say, his striking is accurate. He hits really hard. Um, but he hits really hard is almost like an understatement.
Dude, Joe Rogan said it. Joe Rogan said,
He said,
called him the most feared kickboxer on earth.
yeah, and he's right. I mean, I wrote in my notes that I'm glancing over to here, I wrote hits like a truck, and I double underlined it. When he hits people, he hits accurately and he hits like a truck. And if you get hit by that in the head, you're probably going to sleep. Bruno Silva is also very much a striker. I'll talk about Silva first, and then I'll say what I think about the fight overall. Silva has 7 straight KO or TKO wins. He has 28 pro fights, where Pereira has a lot of combat sports experience with the kickboxing, but is only 4-1 professionally in MMA. There is a big difference there. Silva has power in his hands. He's fast, but not necessarily accurate. He can get messy and kind of get brawling. We don't know really with Silva what his offensive grappling is like. I wasn't really able to find any offensive grappling by him on tape. His defensive grappling and his ability to stay alive with wrestlers and jiu-jitsu guys is good. But we don't know what his offensive grappling looks like. And against a guy like Pereira, that is the only way that he wins this fight. Also want to mention, if you want to see a cool highlight, his fight against Wellington Turman, he knocked him out from his knees. That's the kind of power that Bruno Silva has. Knocked him out cold from on top, ground and pound, against Wellington Turman. So if you want to see a cool highlight, go check out that fight. Yeah, this feels to me like a fight that's set up for Alex Pereira to win. I think he's a guy that the UFC wants to push. They want to push the narrative of this is the guy that beat Adesanya twice and knocked him out the second time. It would be really cool eventually to see a third fight between the two of them in MMA and the UFC. That's far down the line at this point. If Pereira were fighting a grappler in this fight worth any bit of salt, I'd be really worried about him. He has shown in his limited mixed martial arts fights that he does have the ability to stay on his feet pretty well and to scramble back to his feet when he gets taken down. But the guys he's fought have not been high-level grapplers. Silva is absolutely a striker, but his game plan for this fight has to be to come in and try to get it to the mat and to try to keep it there and to try to use ground and pound to win the fight, or to try to use control time to grind out a decision. Given that that's not his game, given how big Pereira's like 6'4", which is pretty tall for the division, and he's pretty thick to be able to make weight here. I don't see that happening. I think the very likely outcome here, and also given that every round starts back on the feet, so even if Silva gets him down in the first round, is able to hold him there, we're right back on the feet at the bell to round 2. I see this as probably a Pereira knockout. You've been teasing some knockouts on your way up the card. This is a possibility for me here. Um, just, yeah, like you said, Joe Rogan said he's the most feared kickboxer in the world. I think he's going to be able to keep his feet, and I think he's going to be able to end Silva's winning streak by putting him to sleep.
Yeah, for sure. I'm 100% on board with this. I think some other things to note here, right? I like to look at where they train. He's training right now with Teixeira MMA and Fitness. Danbury, Connecticut, Danbury Trashers. Check that out on Netflix. Also great
That's
show.
a good movie.
Yeah, that's awesome. But Glover Teixeira, man, that he's climbing up the ladder too with the coaching. Him and Khabib might be just saying, hey, whose gym's tougher now? This is going way farther than there. Yeah, right? I think Bruno, his biggest thing that separates him is his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think you're right. What you were saying, he needs to use that and take it to the ground and be able to say, hey, I'm going to dominate you on the cage and I'm going to control this. I'm not going to let you piece me apart from the edge. I'm not let you going to take your shots. I'm going to dirty box. I'm going to get you to the ground and I'm going to really be dominant. But Pereira only needs one shot, and he is really crafty, and it is dangerous. It is very dangerous. But you see stuff like this, like Wonder Boy, stuff like that. It works for him. But then when he's in situations where he's fighting against grapplers, he doesn't have the best of nights. So I know the one downfall of being such a great kickboxer is what are you on the mat? And this is MMA, mixed martial arts. You have to be well-rounded. But I think he's dangerous enough to take a bet on him. And I'm going Alex Pereira on this one for sure.
Absolutely. And we also didn't even mention too, Silva, despite being a striker, despite having 7 wins in a row by knockout or TKO, he's hittable on the feet. And to be hittable on the feet against Pereira, you're for a rough night, not having the best striking defense if you're not able to spend long amounts of time on the mat.
Yeah, 100%. All right, man. That was Alex Pereira, Bruno Silva, middleweight bout. Second fight on the main card, lightweight. This one, probably one of the, I would say, the top ones I'm excited for on this card. I would say it's definitely a tie between a couple, but card, this is one I like. We got Drew Dober, 23-11. Burns, Terrence T-Rex McKinney, 12-3, coming off an electrifying last finish, just not 14 days ago. This guy, I'm excited for this one. All right, what are your first thoughts here?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say before I get into the breakdown with this fight, this main card for me as an MMA nerd, if you're trying to go in order of excitement, you could almost flip the order of this main card for me, and it would be more building up going backwards than it is going forwards. I'm very excited to see Pereira and Silva fight. I'm very excited about this McKinney and Dober fight. The next one's up. I'm gonna watch them. I love watching the fights, and I'm just less hyped than I am for these two. But anyway, McKinney coming in, when he comes in on Saturday, he'll have fought 2 weeks prior. Destroyed Zaim, ran through him in, I think, what was it, about 2 minutes. Got him to the ground, submitted him. Didn't take any damage in that fight, so coming back so quickly, 2 weeks, it's not like he's wearing anything.
He hasn't taken damage in his last 5.
he hasn't taken damage mostly in his career. I mean, a little bit against Woodson, I guess, when Woodson clipped him in the Contender Series, but
We got 16, 17, a minute 12, 7, 2 minutes and 11.
yeah. Well, that's the thing is, so he's a guy that in one way, it's nice to do tape study on him because all of his fights are over that quick. In another way, there's not a lot of tape to look at because all of his fights are ending very, very quickly. He has very fast hands. He's a boxer and a wrestler, and very good at both. Very good grappling, very good in grappling transitions, very solid technique on the ground. If you go back and actually watch, I believe it's his most recent loss was the Contender Series fight against Woodson. He was winning that fight and dominating that fight. He had Woodson on the ground for most of the first round, controlling him. Had him on the ground in the second round. Woodson gets up. McKinney goes in for another takedown, gets caught with a flying knee and knocked out. So he was on his way to a win there, and
that was a game changer, career changer for him.
And that happens. I mean, it's MMA. Going for that double leg like that, the guy times the knee right. That's night time. I'm very impressed with McKinney. I think I said on the show last week, he's a guy I see getting into the top 15. With this quick turnaround and fighting a guy, Drew Dober, who's been kind of on the edge of the top 15 for the last little while, I don't know that he necessarily gets into the rankings by winning this fight. If he comes out and knocks him out in 17 seconds, then I think you see him in the rankings next week. He probably needs one more to get into the rankings. But I don't think we should look past Drew Dober. There's a reason that Drew Dober is a favorite on the money line in this fight. Drew Dober's been in the UFC since 2013. He's a black belt in Taekwondo. Definitely prefers to strike. He's also a brown belt in BJJ, so he's not completely lost on the ground. We've seen him in recent fights work in takedowns more than he ever had earlier on in his career. He's an absolute savage. He's one of these guys, like I was talking about Tim Elliott last week, that you just like to put your money on because you know he's going to fight hard for your money. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He goes hard. Every UFC fighter goes hard. He goes especially hard. He's got power in his hands. He's got pretty good head movement. Mixes his striking pretty well. Got a very solid low kick and kick to the body too. His last fight with Brad Riddell.
Two banger.
As we're doing, Mac was a little bit ahead of me this week and said, I forget if we were talking on the phone or he texted me. He said, make sure when you do your tape study for Drew Dober that you watch the Riddell fight. And yeah, watching it back, I remember watching it the first time. That is one of the better fights of the year from last year. You guys, if you want to see two guys just in an absolute all-out war, that's a great fight to go back and watch. So that was a good tip on your fight. I probably would have watched it anyway because it was Dober's last fight, but good tip on your part for sure. Drew Dober also gets hit and just keeps walking forward, kind of like a zombie. He's one of those guys. And he throws heavy shots. On the feet, this one is really interesting to me. I think Dober has a little bit more power, even as much power as McKinney has, all the guys he's been knocking out. I think McKinney has a little bit of a speed advantage probably on the feet. I think McKinney has a pretty significant advantage in this fight on the ground. If he's able to take Dober down and keep him there, which is no easy task, but if he's able to do that, I think that's his best path to winning in this fight. The 2 weeks from the last fight coming in for McKinney makes me a little bit nervous. you're making that weight cut really twice, really close together. Uh, and you never know how that's going to play out. His last fight was really short, so I'm not worried about his gas tank from his last fight. I might have a little bit of worry about his gas tank because we just haven't seen him go long in fights. He's finishing guys in the first round. The fight with Woodson went to the second round and he looked pretty good in the second round, but even that second round didn't go very long. So if there's any concern about the gas tank for McKinney, for me, which I don't really have, it would just be that we haven't seen him go into a long drawn out fight like the fight Drew Dober had recently with Riddell. I am with you. You teased it a little earlier on the undercard that you're going to be rocking with McKinney here. I'm also going to be rocking with McKinney. I think that Drew Dober is very, very good. I think he's solid all around. There's also a reason he's been hovering kind of in and out of the end of the top 15 rankings in the division. I don't believe he's in there right now after the fight with Riddell, but he's one of those guys that's kind of right on the fringe there. And I think McKinney's a guy that's into the top 15 soon. I think McKinney's the better fighter, and the only worry I have here is the quick turnaround.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, Drew Dober, one of these tough, just a tough dude. I think the weight cut is definitely going to play an effect into this. But this is what we need to see out of McKinney. Just like you said, there's really not much that's showing up to say, hey, what's what can this kid do? I'm impressed that I'm glad he took it longer in his last fight so we could see a little bit of wrestling. I didn't know that it was going to be that dominant. I know that was a little bit of his background, but I was impressed. What I'd like to see is what he can do with a guy like Dober, though, because he's a big dude.
Definitely a huge step up in competition.
Yeah, I'm going to be shocked to see how well he can take on someone like Drew Dober. But I'm hoping that he can get this W. I like him as an underdog favorite. I don't like this minus 240. I think the only reason that it's where it's at is because he's coming back, coming off a short turnaround. But I think overall, this should be a little bit closer in my eyes.
It actually already is. I'm looking at best fight odds right now. That line has moved a lot. So right now,
cool.
Dober is all the way down to like 165 at BetMGM on best fight odds.
That's
around 180, 190
some
other places. Yeah, that line has come down. There are a lot of people, a lot of bettors out there that agree with you and me that line was too wide.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very big wake up call, and welcome to the real side of the UFC, and show us that you said you're what you all about on your last fight. You know, he said he's the next big thing in that division. He made it very clear. So I'm rooting for him. I got him. I'm taking him as an underdog. I think another line to look at here is the under and finish. Either end. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying get locked in on a McKinney. I mean, I think I would be shocked if it didn't. But I could also see Drew Dober putting a finish out there too. So
especially with the short notice, Dober has an opportunity for a finish too. I really like that way of looking at this one. I popped it up really quick. They set the over under at 1.5, which is not surprising.
Yeah, that's
what McKinney's done, and also that he's coming in on short notice.
What's the odds on that?
So there are just 3 books that have it up right now. Over 1.5 is plus 105 to plus 115.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely probably going to be taking that for sure. All right, that was our lightweight bout. Okay. Let us know uh, who you think's going to take this one. This one's close. I'm excited. Let us know which one you think, and yeah, on to our next one. All right, I'm going to pause.
Heavyweights.
I'm going to pause right there. Quick.
All right.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right, you good?
Yep.
Sweet. All right, in our light heavyweights, Khalil Roundtree, 10-5 versus Carl Robertson, 9-4. Southpaw versus Southpaw. Man, this is gonna be a battle. Uh, I'm I'm super pumped for this one. I think this is gonna be crazy. Um, I think there's lots of ways to look at this. But go ahead, give me your first thoughts.
Yeah, this one to me feels like the UFC a lot of the time on the main card will just put some big boys on the card because there's a good chance that, there are more knockouts at the heavier weight divisions. This feels like on this card, this could be a fight on the prelims. That being said, Roundtree, one of the notes that I wrote myself, when he hits somebody and lands clean, it makes the same sound as like when a baseball player hits a ball 500 feet. Like that thwack sound that happens when he hits somebody clean. The guy hits hard. He's got a really good straight left, but he does sometimes load up on his um, punches and overthrow, and that can obviously leave him open to counters, and it can also drain his gas tank as well. He has heavy, heavy, heavy leg kicks. He had a leg kick finish actually against Bukauskas recently. And while he throws heavy, heavy leg kicks, he also checks leg kicks pretty well. He's also one of these guys like Dalcha, who we were talking about a little bit earlier, who just kind of takes breaks in the middle of fights sometimes. There are times when he'll just stand there looking for a counter, not really having too much output, and standing around. It makes for a boring fight as a fan sometimes, those moments. He's definitely not a boring fighter because of how hard he hits, but it makes for moments of two guys just kind of staring at each other at times. He moved to training at Tiger Muay Thai, which is where Valentina Shevchenko is, and a number of other good fighters. I think Fiziev is in that camp too, and kind of transformed his career a little bit at that point when he moved out there a few years ago. There was a fight right after he moved out there where he was much more in a Muay Thai stance than he has been recently, but moving his camp out there and training there has definitely helped him improve in his career in big ways. Roberson is going to be moving up from middleweight to light heavyweight for this fight. So he has been fighting at 185. He had one short notice fight against Glover Teixeira at 205 that he lost. But that was a short notice fight. So he's fighting at a heavier weight. His real division up until now has been the 185 division, but he's 6'4". He's plenty big enough to hang with the light heavyweights at 205. He's a kickboxer as his background. He'll probably have a good speed advantage in this fight on the feet against Roundtree. Roberson is definitely the guy who has the advantage in the wrestling and grappling. He has a good handful of submission wins on his record. Definitely the guy that, if this is able to go to the ground, will have the advantage. That being said, Roberson moving up to 205, Roundtree being as big as he is, I mean, the guy's shoulders are massive, even for the 205 division. I don't think he's going to have a super easy time taking Roundtree down, even though Roundtree's takedown defense is not the best in the world. It was, I think, Ian Kutalaba, if I'm remembering correctly, took him down and finished him pretty quickly. I don't see Roberson being able to do that as easily. I see this one playing out on the feet, being kind of a speed versus power striking matchup. I think the difference maker for me in this one is the kicks with Roundtree. The way he throws heavy kicks, and the way he's pretty good at checking kicks. And for a big, broad-shouldered guy, he moves decently on the feet. I'm not going to say he moves super well on the feet, but he moves decently for a guy that can appear a little bit kind of lumbering at times. His footwork is solid. I'm going with Roundtree in this one. He doesn't have a lot of knockouts on his record, which is a little surprising given how hard he hits. But this could be a sneaky KO spot.
He's got 7.
Does he have 7? Okay, I'm
7
mistaken.
out of his 10 finishes.
Gotcha.
10 wins.
How many of those in the UFC?
That one I have to do a little bit of math.
I'm trying to pop it up too
1, 2, 3 were outside. So 4 were in the UFC.
4 in the UFC. Okay. So that's more than I thought. So I stand corrected.
But no, yeah. Now that you know,
one of
right?
them was the leg kick against Bukauskas, so that's not a punch knockout.
Right.
Yeah. So I stand corrected on that, but I believe also that Roundtree, is a slight underdog in this fight last time I checked. And this is
slight. Yep, that's what I got it as.
Where I'm not going to put a bet on this soon, because my strategy here is to wait. I think this line is going to move more and more towards Roberson as the week goes on. And I'm going to wait till maybe right all the way up until Saturday afternoon to put my bet on Roundtree. But that one is coming for me.
Yeah, I definitely am going to wait until after the weigh-ins, and because I want to see the size difference. I want to see how Carl built up, and I want to see how it compares to Khalil, because I think that right there is going to really sway me either way on this one. Respecting Roberson's, jiu-jitsu and grappling skills, respecting that. I think Khalil, I'm just looking back at 2 of his fights, Brendan Allen and Marvin Vettori, who just dominated him right from the start. And I look at this and thinking, could Roundtree try? And again, respecting that we're saying here, Roberson's very good at grappling, that Roundtree can actually take him to the down and press on.
Yeah.
he's not a slouch either. So, but I do think that the longer this stays on the feet, the longer Roberson's going to have a shot, and it's because he's a good striker. So I don't know. I'm right. I think the key to victory here is for Roundtree to take him to the ground, control the cage, pin him against the cage. Use his,
Yeah, that's not his
but
game. No, I don't think he's
but
gonna go that way.
but again, I want to see what he's going to look like, size comparison. Um, and I don't know, but I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think he will either, but that's what I would do because that's the game. Because I think that Roberson's got some good striking. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But if I were him, I think to have any type of advantage, and again, this is going to be based off of what the size looks like, and how well Roberson built up to it. But we've seen it time and time and again of the bigger guys being able to figure out against good grapplers or people who are better than grappling them. So yeah, I think I'm waiting on this one until if I would have to pick tomorrow, I'm gonna go Roundtree though. I think Roundtree, I like him more. Again, I want to see what happens at the weigh-ins.
I think that's smart.
All right.
It's going to move through the week.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, that's our light heavyweight bout: Khalil Roundtree, Carl Robertson. All right, next up, featherweight. We got Sadiq Youssef and Alex Sakaris. All right, buddy, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so this is another hammer bet spot for me. Sadiq Youssef has fast hands, presses forward. He's got a lot of power in his hands, really good technique. He's another guy that can take a punch to throw a punch, will come through a brawl to do what he wants to do to impose his will. He's got a really strong jab. He is hittable at times. He has been touched on the feet, but like I said, he can be touched, but a lot of the time he goes right through it to land what he's trying to do. He has a solid get-up game that he showed, especially in the fight against Andre Fili. Andre Fili took him down a few times, and he was getting right back up against Andre Fili, who's a good guy on the ground. Sadiq has good top pressure. He's no slouch on the ground himself. He's a guy, he's already in the top 15. Both of these guys are. And he's a young guy. He's an up-and-coming guy, even though he's already in the top 15. And I see him continuing to climb the rankings. I don't know if he's a guy that's necessarily going to win a title, but as guys grow and make improvements, we see how that unfolds over time. But he's a guy who I think can hang around in the top 10 for a good number of years to come. Alex Caceres, man, it is cool to see what he's done recently. Alex Caceres is funky, fun, creative. He's been in the UFC since 2011, so about 11 years now he's been in the UFC. He's on a 5-fight win streak, which is super impressive in the UFC to win 5 fights against any 5 guys. To me, he's got one guy out of those 5, and it was his most recent fight against Choi. That's an especially impressive guy in the UFC to beat.
100%.
Let me pop this up here. I remember off the top of my head, he beat Chase Hooper. He beat Peterson, I believe. Guys that are UFC fighters, but they're not necessarily guys that are making a run at the top. Let's see, I've got this popped up here. Austin Springer. I'm going to be honest with you. I am a really big UFC fan, and I don't know who Austin Springer is. Okay, he's had one fight in the UFC, and it was his loss to Caceres in the first round. He also lost to Giga Chikadze on the Contender Series. That's interesting too. Anyway, uh, Caceres has kicks from everywhere. He's improved on the ground. He even actually, I mean, it wasn't even on the ground really. He kind of climbed on Choi's back and finished him in his last fight. Aside from his kicks are good, he has good volume on the feet, but he really doesn't hit hard. He's not a guy that you worry about knocking you out. Um, I'm looking back. I don't think even in the 11 years he's been in the UFC that he has a knockout win on his record. His wins are by decision and submission. As cool and as fun of a story as it is to see the run that Caceres has been on, I think there's a reason that starting a few years ago, they're using him as a gatekeeper for guys like Chase Hooper to give him a little test and see, are you ready to start moving up a little bit or not? And great for him that he's won 5 fights in a row. He's a really fun guy to watch fight. I'm just not sold on the win streak. And I'm not sold by one impressive fight against Choi. Choi is a really, really good fighter. Choi is also now 3-3 in the UFC after that loss. I've got Yusuf in this fight. I've got Yusuf by pretty much whatever he wants. I think Yusuf can control on the ground and win the fight with ground and pound. I think Yusuf can keep it on the feet and potentially win by knockout. This is a heavy bet spot for me on Yusuf.
Yeah, I think so. I'm leaning strong towards Yusuf, and I get he's coming off a tough loss. Arnold Allen.
Arnold Allen,
but
other
he
guy
had
in the top 10 for a long time.
He finished the fight really strong. It's just Allen had 2 knockdowns early, and it was hard to battle back from that. And I think it just was just the way it goes. But I mean, I think if you're a Sadiq, you have a point to prove right now. And I think that you need to start fast. You need to end this early. He's got strong power. And I think he can do it. I think he can really, really end this one quickly. It is fun. I like Caceres, Bruce Leroy.
Great nickname.
Yeah, I think for him to win, he's got to stay away from Sadiq, and he's got to keep at range, and he's going to have to really use feints and some counters to mess with him, because if Sadiq gets anywhere inside there to make that dirty, I think Sadiq, like you said, he's going to do it however he wants. But yeah, if Caceres doesn't play from range and try to counter it and set up his shots, Sadiq's just going to run right over him. So I am taking Sadiq Yusuf as well.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. 100% on that one. All right, man. That's our featherweight bouts. Sadiq Yusuf, Alex Caceres. Let us know who you picking. Gotta love when we agree on one, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think like you said, hammer bet. I think Sadiq's a hammer bet for me.
I agree.
I think that's a drop the hammer bet. All right. Next one. Two fighters that I love watching on this next one. We have a nice bantamweight matchup between Marlon Moraes and Song Yadong. Marlon coming in 23-9-1, noted to be there 16 finishes. All right, on those 23 wins, 16 by a finish. And Song Yadong 18-5-1 with 10 finishes on his end. I think I know personally I love watching Song Yadong fight. I think he's provides good entertainment value. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
With 25 fights.
Yes.
24 years old with 25 fights. This
Yep.
this this man now has been fighting in the UFC has been fighting professional sports and since he was 16 years old. You know, so yeah, I'm excited. What are you feeling for this one?
Yeah. So I don't know how amusing this is to the other people, but this one's fun for me. My wife knows absolutely nothing about MMA, but her favorite fighter is Song Yadong because she likes his name. So we'll throw that out there for the people.
That it.
Uh,
That's it.
like you said, 24 years old, training at Team Alpha Male with Uriah Faber and that camp. Really strong up and coming prospect. This is a guy that's probably going to be around, talking about Arnold Allen and Youssef a minute ago, guys that are young and upcoming, going to be in the top 10 for a long time. Song Yadong is another one of those guys. He's a boxer primarily with really, really good striking. He's, like you said, he's 24 years old. He's still getting better. He's getting better with almost every fight. Every fight, win or lose for him, is experience in the cage. And like you said, he's got 20-something fights, so it's not like he's a 24-year-old that's on his fifth or sixth fight. He has professional experience for his age, but he's still growing and improving. He absorbs strikes well. He's not the best wrestler in the world, but he can hang, is the note I wrote myself. He can hang in the wrestling. He's not totally lost. He's not one of these guys like talking about Alex Pereira a little while ago, where if you get him flat on his back, he might flounder around like Greg Hardy did last week. Maurice, man, I have lost a bunch of money betting on Maurice. He has fought the who's who of this division. He's got 4 losses in his last 5 fights, and you could actually argue that he's lost all of them. He got a split decision win over Jose Aldo, where I thought Jose Aldo won the fight. I had a bet on Jose Aldo. So frustrating for me in that one, but that's Jose Aldo. The other 3 guys he's lost for are all in the top 6 in the division right now, or 3 of the 4 guys he lost are all in the top 6 in the division right now. And oh, by the way, the other one is Henry Cejudo. Yeah. Who, just as an aside, I want to see him fight anybody. Like, give him Volkanovski, give him anybody. I just want to see him come back and fight.
Right.
Please get, like, I know he's on the coaching train now with the Fight Ready gym, and he's doing well with that, but he's young enough. I want to see him back in the cage fighting somebody. So yeah, Moraes is a black belt in BJJ and Muay Thai. He's got really good power in his hands. He has submissions on the ground. He's a guy who has deserved to fight the who's who of the division in his last several fights. And at one point in time was a very strong title contender. I think he's past that time. He seems a little bit like he doesn't have the gas tank that he used to. He's gotten knocked out a number of times in his last few fights. Pop that up.
Yeah, he's on a three fight losing streak right now.
3-fight losing streak, all TKOs.
Yeah.
Sandhagen, Fonten, and Dvalishvili.
Yeah. Against dudes.
Those are named fighters, every single one of them.
His last 5 fights have been named fighters.
Right. And even before that, a Sun Tzu.
Yeah.
And then you go back a little bit. Jimmy Rivera. Okay. Aljamain's on his record. John Dodson.
Championship bouts. Just, you look at his name and it's just whatever championship fighting he was in, we're looking at belts that he's championship level.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so for a pick for this one, man, do I want to bet Moraes, especially at the line that it's at right now. Moraes is out there between 195 and even on BetMGM, he's at plus 220 right now. I don't think I'm gonna get to the spot of putting my money in on Moraes. I think this is probably going to, because of the line, end up being a pass for me. I think I'm even going to pick Song Yadong to win the fight. He's the younger, improving fighter. This is a classic young up and comer against a guy who may be on his way, if not out, definitely it seems like down.
Yeah, 100%. I think Song Yudong is the better striker. I think he's coming on great second round KO against Julio Arce. I know he had a tough loss. I know he had a tough. Yeah, I know he had a tough loss against Kyler Phillips. I remember that fight because I had him. I had Song Yudong to win, and he just never found his footing. And I get it, he needs to make a run, and that was for a pretty much a place swap. Kyler was unranked at that time, and then now is above the rankings, top. I think he's 14, so he's up there. So I think this is something Song Yadong needs to go through now, because he did lose to Kyler Phillips when he should have won, and he should that's on him. He's got to go back down to climb back up.
This isn't even that, though. Like, Moraes is a top guy. This is like a changing of the guard almost.
Yeah, this is 100%. And I would say, yes, you got to look at Moraes' history and what he's done here. It's weird to look at like how similar, like in numbers they are. Like, I mean, they're a couple off, but you wouldn't expect their age difference to be so far off. You know what I'm saying? Like, these dudes have lots of fights, but I would say Moraes has had bigger fights. So respecting that, I do think he's a good fighter. Yeah, I think he needs it. This is one of those ones where he needs a win, or this could potentially be his last fight in the UFC.
I hope not, but if you lose 4 times in a row, a lot of times it happens.
This could be the last time we see him. So he needs a win. But I think Song Yadong. I think he comes through. I think he fights the technical fight that he can. I think he picks his shots when he needs to. I think he beats aggressive when he needs to. I think he's got knockout power. And I think you're right, changing the guard. I think this is young and up and coming. And I see him just putting him out, putting him to sleep.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm on the same side as you with picking Song Yadong. I don't like the line, so I'm probably not going to bet it. But Song Yadong is the pick for me too.
Yeah, same. All right, that was our co-main event. Marlon Moraes versus Song Yadong. Let us know who you like. Which now brings us to the main event of the evening, a light heavyweight matchup with 2 titans in the industry, Thiago Santos, 22-9, versus Magomed Ankalaev, 16-1. Woo, man! I tell you what. One, I love Thiago. We got matching tattoos, so I mess with that. But I think right off the rip for me, the line is very, very wide, and I'm not sure what I'm missing, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm missing there. I don't think it should be that wide. I do respect Magomed is doing what he's doing. I think Thiago's inconsistency is probably why it's too wide, but let me know. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with you. I'm going to be transparent and say I still have a little bit of homework to do on this fight before I decide if I'm going to bet it, and if so, how. We have a deadline to film our show, and I got like I don't know, whatever 13 out of 14 is, 80%, 90% on my homework this week. So I've got a little bit of work to do still to figure out where I'm at betting wise with this. Ankalaev obviously throws hard. He can wrestle too if it's needed. He moves well for a big guy and has solid kicks. Santos, man, in his prime was one of my favorite fighters to watch. Ever since his knees were destroyed, he has not been the same guy. He's 38 years old now. Feels like he's past his prime. His fight with Johnny Walker, man, I was so excited for that fight. And I'm going to do tape study on Santos, and so I'll probably go back and watch that. But I remember it as the two of them looking at each other for 5 rounds. Very, very boring fight there. And so, he got the win, I guess, because somebody wins the fight. But neither he or Johnny Walker had anything to write home about in that fight. Santos is not the greatest wrestler. He throws hard. That hammer on his chest. He also has the hammer in his hands. You can make the argument that he actually beat John Jones. I think he had it on one of the judges' scorecards in that fight against John Jones, and I could see the argument that Thiago should have been that guy, which would have raised his profile a lot. I don't know that it would have done a lot for him afterwards, because we've seen him just be not his old self since then. We've seen him be more cautious. We've seen him be slower. He still throws his heavy shots, but not his same old self. Like you said, I don't know what I'm missing with this line. When I popped up this line, when I looked briefly into this fight before coming on today, I do agree that Ankalaev should be the favorite. I think he should be a pretty decent sized favorite, like maybe minus 250, even minus 300. This line to me is out of control. I don't think I really want any part of betting Thiago Santos. I don't think he has a great chance other than a puncher's knockout chance to win this fight. I think if it goes long, it's going to be Ankalaev all day. If it goes to decision, I think it's very likely Ankalaev, and I can also see Ankalaev getting a finish either on the feet or taking him down and ground and pound. Ankalaev has decent wrestling, and yeah, I'm just a little perplexed by the line. I'm probably I hate to do it in a main event. I like to take a bet in every main event. I hate to do it. I'm definitely staying off the money line. I'll probably look at something like, if I can get a crazy number on Thiago Santos by knockout, and throw, a quarter of a unit or a half a unit on something like that. That might be the way I go, just to have some action on the main event. But I want nothing to do with this line.
Oh yeah. I for me, it's which Thiago Santos is going to show up. We're talking about a guy who beat Jan Blachowicz, knocked him out.
Arguably beat John Jones.
I remember watching that fight with you, and it was about this time in 2019, about probably the same. What was that, March? I don't know, July. But I remember watching that and being like, man, this guy actually might have just did it, and he just might have beat John Jones. And I think the split decision, it could have went either way. And then come to find out, he had busted up his knee. What was it, torn ACL? MCL?
I think it wasn't it both? I believe it was, if I'm not wrong, both of them.
Yeah.
Both.
So
ACL, MCL, something like that.
And then comes and loses to Glover, which, as we know, we're Glover. So you got to think, okay, Glover's beat a lot of people. happens. You got submitted by Glover. Okay, long list there. But then it was the disappointing performance against Raychik. And then, yeah, Johnny Walker.
Johnny Walker. Like,
Yeah, and then Johnny Walker, you're like, all right, you definitely improved, but like, you still didn't. I'm happy for you, but oh, man, you're going
yeah,
against Ankalaev now.
to steal a line from Julian Lane from one of the old Ultimate Fighters. I wish those guys had banged, bro.
Yeah,
Johnny
man.
Walker and Santos. I wanted to see them throw down, and just disappointing.
These are the things I like about Magomed, though. He's a tall, he's a big fighter. He's got a small height advantage, which is weird considering Thiago's already a big man himself. I think he needs to keep Thiago at range, though. I don't know if he wants to get in a dirty boxing match with Thiago because we've seen him what he can do when he can get inside. But I would say for Magomed, he wants to stay outside, does not want to be in near that power at all. And then I'd say, can he take him down? Because the losses that Santos has had, it's been people being able to just be able to get him to the mat and at least put it in his mind and slows down his power, right? Because he can't put as much on it if he has to fear that he's going to get taken down and not be able to get back up. So I don't know if, I mean, again, Magomed, that's what they do over there. They're really good at it. All of them are really good wrestlers. So I guess for him, he's got to work those takedowns in and work the ground and pound. I think he's got great cardio, though, Magomed, and I think he needs to up the volume on Thiago. Again, you can't let Thiago sit back there and load up shots and counter. You have to put the pressure on him. Go back and watch when he loses on fights. That's what happens. I'm going to ride with Thiago here. Thor's power runs through his veins. And it's because I'm hoping the guy who showed up against John Jones shows up. I think there is something in
getting that body or those knees are still there.
But see, I think there's something in getting injured where you need time to recover, and I think a sub loss against Teixeira doesn't really show you what knees have done. But I think his loss against Raychik, I just don't think he ever found his footing. I think he got really thrown off by Glover, and then he was in a funk. So he was in a 2-fight funk. I think he's starting to find himself again. I think I can see him coming down here and winning and pulling off a super big upset. This is 2 weeks in a row. I'm taking the dog on the main event. And again, you're talking to the guy who always will bet Connor and Nate. But yeah, I'm taking the dog on Thiago Santos, man.
I don't hate it at like plus 400. If I were going to go one way, and like I said, I'm probably just not going to bet the money line. Probably find a prop or something. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at plus 400. I wouldn't put a lot of money on it. Little, maybe a half unit or something like that. But yeah, I don't fault you for going that side. I think Ankalaev's going to win the fight, but at those odds being what they are, it's not a bad way to go.
Oh yeah, 100%. All right, man. That's going to wrap us up for this main event. Again, UFC Vegas 50. Thiago Santos versus Magomed Ankalaev, a 14-fight banger. Again, so many good ones. I can't believe it's free. All right, that brings us to our final segment where we give you some of our way too early predictions and picks and parlays and anything else we think we're going to ride heavy on.
And our knockout bets.
Yeah, and our knockout bets. So what's something you got for us, Andrew?
Well, you
what do
want
you
to start
feel?
with our knockout bets, and then
Sure,
we'll
let's do
hit
that. I'm down.
lottery
100%.
ticket parlays at the end. So knockout bets, there's one that's easy, and while we were talking about the main event, I popped it up. Alex Pereira by knockout. That's actually favored to happen. He's at minus 135 by KO TKO. So that would be an easy one to pick. I almost want to pick it, but I don't want to go with something that's that easy. So what I'm going to go with is my knockout bet for this week is Khalil Roundtree. I think he gets it done against Roberson and puts him to sleep with the heavy power.
Well, I had a lot on the way up for the knockouts. I had Merskhanov, I had underdog Sabino upset, Javid, Pereira, T-Rex, Sadiq. I think if I'm going to have to sort through all those, which again, that's why I think all these could really potentially happen. But I think the one that I'm throwing the lockdown to is also going to be Pereira. I think Pereira is going to do something crazy and flying knee again, kick, spinning back fist, something super highlight reel worthy and get it done. I'm also taking for another finish of the night, Jillian Robertson submission. Taking it, 100% taking it, slamming it, no matter what the line is. I'm taking that one for sure. Great. What else? What else you rocking with?
Well, so I haven't put it in yet, but the last segment that we did last week, and so I think we can end it off with this week, is to come up with your lottery ticket parlay. So to go with some fights that I think the best ones for a lottery ticket parlay to me anyway are fights with lines that are closer. So especially lines closer than minus 200, and especially upsets. And if you're throwing 4 or 5 together, I had a 6-fight one last week that the only one that missed was Devontae Smith. I was 5 out of 6, and that was at like plus 3,500. And Devontae Smith was the first fight that happened out of all of those. So it's like, all right, that's over. And yeah, it's a lottery ticket bet. It's not supposed to hit. It's plus 3,500 odds or whatever it is. And then one by one, the next 5 things on their hits. Ugh. But anyway, a lottery ticket bet for this week. I'm just gonna flip through my notes and go a couple people that I would throw into a lottery ticket bet, parlaying them all together, going for that big money. I have Cody Brundage in there for sure. Damon Jackson is going to be in there as well. If I'm really going for it on a big one, I might throw Trevin Jones. I'm not so sure about that. Let's say not in there for now. So we got Brundage, Jackson, Jillian Robertson's in there for me. Fletcher. Pereira's line is close enough to be in a lottery ticket bet. McKinney. I think we'll leave it at that.
That's a good one.
Parlay all those together. I don't know what that adds up to. I'll have to go on the betting apps and see who gives me some good odds on that. But that's got to be plus a few thousand there.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think the one I'm riding with, I got a nice little 6-fighter here. Javid Bashrat, Damon Jackson, Khalil Roundtree, Jillian Robertson, AJ Fletcher, and Sabino Maza. Throw that in there. Just sprinkling that in there. Some big underdogs. That's getting me
So there's what we're thinking for our lottery ticket bets, and we'll
Yeah.
definitely throw both of those up on Twitter once we lock them in.
Yeah, plus 3,500 for sure. That could be
check
something.
us out on Twitter at recliner_report, and we'll have our lottery ticket bets for this week, throwing some fights together, trying to hit some big money, as well as our other bets in there as well.
Sick. All right, man. That's that time of the show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for supporting. Please go give us a like and a subscribe, and check us out. We're all over now. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a like, watch our stuff. Again, this is social media. We'd love to get to know any of you. If you're thinking about maybe you want to call in and give your opinion on the show, let us know. Hit us up. Send us something. Email reclinersportsreport@gmail.com. Send us an email. We'd love to possibly collaborate. Andrew, any final words?
I'm excited for this card. I'm looking forward to it.
Heck yeah. All right. Thank you.
Oh, wait, I do have one more final word. So the dings that happened on the prelims, that's my wife texting me. I have to figure out how to turn that feature off on my laptop, so I apologize for those. She was texting me to tell me to stop saying and because she could hear me from outside the door of the office that I'm in. So we're on podcast number 2. We're improving in that way of not saying and all the time. I'm trying not to think about it too much and trying to speak as naturally as possible, talking about these fights. We're getting into it as best we can, and those things will get better, and our production quality will get better with not having those dings in the background. So look for us to get better and better every show. I'm already sitting here wrapping this up, feel like we had a solid first show, and that this one is an improvement on that, and we're going to keep trending in good directions and doing good things.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah, dude. It's been a fun ride. I'm excited to keep doing on this journey. All right. Thanks everyone for stopping by, and keep the change.
Keep the change.